Hey there, future history ace. Welcome to the deep dive.
Rob.
Today we're on a mission, your mission, actually to conquer early American history for that upcoming test.
That's right.
We've got your study materials stacked up, and we're going to pull out the most important insights, making sure you don't just memorize, but truly understand what shaped this pivotal era.
Exactly. Think of us as your personal guides, helping you navigate everything from the pre-Columbian Americas right through those initial, transformative European encounters
Yeah, we want to connect the dots, give you those aha moments.
and get you feeling confident for exam day.
We're covering a lot of ground today. We'll dig into the vital role of the buffalo for Great Plains Indians, pinpoint key dates like 1492 and the significant 1680.
Crucial dates, yeah.
You'll learn exactly where tribes like the Pueblo, Chumash, Chinook, and Iroquois called home, and we'll untangle the incredible flow of goods in the Columbian Exchange.
And we'll also dive into the fascinating, sometimes contrasting, roles of Franciscan and Jesuit priests, the impactful Bartolomé de las Casas, and that unique cultural legacy of Gula.
It's amazing how interconnected it all is.
It really is. Understanding one aspect often kind of unlocks insights into another, giving you a richer, more durable grasp of the material.
Okay, so let's stop talking about it and actually start deep diving.
Let's do it.
All right, let's kick things off by stepping back to the Americas before widespread European arrival. We often lump Native American cultures together, but our sources really emphasize their incredible diversity.
Absolutely. Especially in how they ingeniously adapted to their unique environments.
It wasn't just living in the environment, right?
No, not at all. The environment often defined their entire way of life, how they ate, how they built shelter, even how their societies were structured. It's fundamental.
So where should we start? Maybe the Great Plains.
Yeah, let's start there because one animal was so central. It was almost like the heartbeat of their existence.
And I'm guessing you're talking about the buffalo. The sources make that crystal clear.
Definitely the buffalo. There's that quote, "Buffalo is everything of life." It just captures it perfectly.
Wow.
These were primarily nomadic tribes following these immense herds, potentially tens of millions strong.
Tens of millions. That's hard to even picture.
It is. And they relied on buffalo not just for food, but for clothing, shelter from hides, tools from bone, even fuel.
Everything.
Pretty much. When it got cold, the buffalo moved south. When warm, they went north, and the people moved right along with them. It's a profound example of living in deep harmony with nature, not trying to, conquer it.
So the buffalo dictated the rhythm of life. Okay, that's a powerful insight. But what about different environments? How did other tribes master their specific surroundings? Let's talk Pueblo. Hot, dry Southwest, Arizona, northern Mexico, around 750 to 1300 CE.
Right, and their genius was irrigation. Faced with scarce water, they became masters of managing it, building these ingenious systems to capture and contain infrequent but heavy rains.
And their homes reflected that too.
Yeah, adobe brick homes designed to stay cool. Their diet corn, beans, squash, small game. It reflected the limited resources. And unfortunately, that scarcity sometimes led to intertribal fighting.
Okay, so let's shift climates completely. The Chinook, up in the Pacific Northwest Oregon, Washington. Very different place.
Totally different, incredibly rich. Food from rivers, oceans, dense forests, abundance everywhere.
So how do they use that abundance?
Well, they built impressive longhouses, incredible totem poles from the massive trees there. But what's really fascinating, and maybe a bit surprising, is their practice of head flattening among the elites.
Head flattening. Why?
It wasn't just, random custom. It was a physical, visible marker of status. It showed their social stratification, which could develop because they had so much abundance. It shows how a rich environment can lead to really complex social structures.
Interesting. Okay, down the coast now, the Chumash. California, around 1000 CE, San Luis Obispo, down to LA. Mild climate, lots of seafood.
Right? Seafood, game, and acorns, actually. They figured out how to process acorns to remove the bitter tannins, making them edible.
Clever. But they were also economic innovators, weren't they?
Absolutely. Their real wealth came from creating a unique shell currency. They used specific shells found only in their coastal area.
So like a monopoly.
Exactly. It gave them a monopoly on this form of money throughout California. It shows how geographic advantage could become major economic power. Plus, they were phenomenal navigators. They built sophisticated canoes, sealed with natural tar from the area, letting them trade extensively, even out to the Channel Islands.
Wow. Okay. Finally, let's turn to the Iroquois. Northeast New York State. Colder, maybe tougher environment.
Yeah, challenging environment, definitely. But their most striking innovation wasn't really environmental, it was political.
Political, how so?
They formed this powerful confederation of 5 tribes, and they developed remarkably advanced representative government that actually included both men and women.
Really? That early?
Yeah. Each village sent a sachem, sort of like a chief or mayor, to a higher council to make decisions for the whole confederation. It's an early, powerful example of federalism. Really sophisticated governance.
That's an incredible range of adaptation and ingenuity before the Europeans even arrived in large numbers.
Surely is.
But as we know, things changed dramatically. Let's shift gears and talk about the arrival of Europeans. We need to lock in some key dates for the test.
Right, and these dates aren't just for memorizing. They're signposts marking critical shifts in power, culture, everything.
Okay, first big one, 1492. Columbus, funded by Spain, lands in the Bahamas. We all know that part.
Right, but it's also crucial to remember what else happened in Spain that same year.
What was that?
It marks the final expulsion of the Moors, the North African Muslims, from Granada, ending the nearly 800-year Reconquista. And in the same year, all unconverted Jews were ordered to leave Spain.
Wow, so a very intense time in Spain itself.
Exactly. It highlights the intense religious fervor and drive for national unity that propelled the Spanish monarchs. And that attitude, they brought it with them to the New World. 1492 is the start of permanent, continuous contact.
That context is key. Okay, next date, 1534, France arrives.
Right, and they intentionally settled far from the Spanish. And notice the contrast in approach immediately.
How so?
Spain was about God, glory, and gold, conversion, conquest, exploitation. The French had a much smaller population in the colonies. Their economy started with cod fishing, then shifted to the fur trade.
Which required a different relationship with native people?
Precisely. The fur trade demanded cooperation, not conquest. So the French typically sought alliances, relying on native trappers and trade networks, a much lighter footprint initially.
Okay, got it. Moving on to 1614, the Dutch arrive.
And the Dutch.
Yeah.
Their main drive was trade and profit, commerce above all else. They founded New Amsterdam. Now New York is this major global trade hub.
And they were different in terms of tolerance.
Remarkably so, especially compared to Spain or even France. They were incredibly tolerant of diverse languages and religions. This attracted settlers from all over, not just the Netherlands, created a real cosmopolitan vibe. Though it's important to note, they were also involved early on in bringing enslaved Africans to the English colonies.
Right. Okay, one more key date representing resistance. 1680, Pope's revolt, the Pueblo Revolt.
Yes, a pivotal moment. Pope, a Pueblo religious leader in the southwest New Mexico area, managed to unite 47 villages.
47. That's incredible coordination.
It really was. It was a coordinated uprising against Spanish oppression, the brutal encomienda labor system, forced conversions, suppression of their traditions, disease, population decline, all of it.
And what happened?
They killed about 250 Spanish settlers and remarkably drove the Spanish completely out of the area for over a decade.
Wow, so why is this revolt considered so significant?
Temporary, right? It was temporary. Yes, the Spanish did eventually return, but it's hugely significant. It was this powerful assertion of cultural and spiritual survival, and it forced the Spanish to change. When they came back, they had to adopt a much more lenient policy in that region. They ended native enslavement there, eased up on forced conversions. It proved that unified native resistance could fundamentally alter colonial strategy, a crucial lesson.
That's a really important point. Okay, this overview of European powers brings us nicely to the role of religion and specific individuals. Let's talk priests first, Franciscan versus Jesuit. Very different methods.
Night and day, really. Both Spain and France had strong religious motivations, but their approaches and the impacts were profoundly different.
So the Franciscan priests, deployed by Spain, what was their approach?
Intense. Their mission was basically forced conversion to Catholicism. These guys were hardcore, believed in mortification of the flesh, self-flagellation, the whole deal.
And they applied that to the native.
They brought that severe, uncompromising approach. They herded native people into missions, partly to train them in European ways, but effectively it was forced labor and cultural assimilation. This became a big part of Spain's Black Legend, that narrative of unique Spanish cruelty.
Okay, stark contrast them with the French Jesuit priests.
Totally different. The Jesuits used a much more patient, cooperative approach. They actually traveled to native villages, learned languages, engaged people on their own terms, paddling canoes through the Northeast.
Was it effective in terms of conversions?
Much, much slower. There's a story of Father Marquette converting maybe 100 people in 50 years. The Jesuits often realized that natives were just sort of adding Christianity on their existing beliefs. They'd hear things like, "Such is not our custom, your world is different from ours." It really highlights that cultural clash and how slow real conversion is without brute force.
Which brings us to someone who challenged the Spanish brutality, Bartolomé de las Casas.
Ah, Las Casas. A really complex and important figure. He started out as a slave owner himself on a Caribbean plantation.
So he saw the cruelty firsthand.
Exactly. And it horrified him. He had this major change of heart, repented, became a Franciscan priest, and then dedicated his life to advocating for native rights.
How did he do that?
He wrote these incredibly detailed, chilling letters back to the Spanish monarchy, chronicling the abuses. He called the Spaniards ravening beasts preying on meek outcasts. Powerful stuff.
Did it work? Did his advocacy lead to change?
It did, partly. His efforts led to the new laws, which were intended to protect natives.
Yeah.
But here's the tragic part.
They weren't enforced?
Pretty much. Too far from Spain, too much money to be made by the conquistadors. The laws were largely ignored in practice. It shows how hard it was to implement reforms against powerful economic interests.
And there's that complexity about him initially suggesting African labor.
Right, which he later deeply regretted. His story is vital, though. It's a first-hand account of the atrocities, forcing us to question the simple narrative of conquest. It shows the complexities, the good intentions, and the harsh realities of the time.
Okay, let's zoom out now to something that affected everyone, everywhere. The Columbian Exchange.
Ah, yes, this massive global transfer of, well, everything. Foods, plants, animals, diseases. Back and forth between the Old World, Europe, Africa, Asia, and the New World, the Americas. It fundamentally reshaped the planet.
Okay, so let's break it down. What came from Europe to the Americas? What were the big items?
Well, domesticated animals were huge. Horses, pigs, cows. They revolutionized life for many native groups, changing hunting, travel, agriculture. Some European foods came over too.
But also the devastating stuff.
Yes, diseases,
Yeah.
smallpox, typhus, measles. Because Native Americans had zero immunity, the impact was catastrophic. We're talking estimates of 50 to 90 million people dying. An unimaginable demographic collapse. Oh, and unintentional things too, like cockroaches and rats.
Just horrific. Okay, what about the other way? What went from the Americas to Europe?
Europe hit the jackpot in many ways. They got incredible new foods, high-calorie, nutritious stuff like beans, potatoes, corn, squash. These are often easier to grow than their traditional grains.
So that would have had a huge impact on their population.
Massive. Better nutrition, more food security. Plus, they got things that transform tastes and economies. Vanilla, tobacco, chocolate, sugar, cotton, luxury goods, and major cash crops.
So, summing up the impact, good for Europe, terrible for the Americas.
In broad strokes, yes,
Right.
for Europe. Bigger populations, longer lives, economic boosts. For the Americas, disease, demographic disaster on a scale never seen before or since. And that massive loss of life.
Yeah.
It created a huge problem.
A labor vacuum.
Exactly. A desperate, insatiable demand for labor. And that leads us directly into the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade.
And this form of slavery was different, right? Our sources emphasize that.
Fundamentally different. This wasn't like earlier forms of servitude, driven by mercantilism and the demand for incredibly labor-intensive crops, sugar especially, but also rice, tobacco, cotton. This New World slavery became brutally systematic.
How so? What defined it?
It became unequivocally race-based. Africans were targeted specifically. Why? Seen as easily identifiable by skin color, a large supply was available via existing African slave roads. And crucially, they had more immunity to European diseases than Native Americans. Plus, the church condemning the enslavement of Christians ironically pushed traders towards non-Christian Africa.
And it was permanent.
Permanent and inherited, passed down through generations, completely dehumanizing.
And the conditions, particularly on sugar plantations, the sources mention a shockingly short life expectancy.
Just horrific. In the Caribbean, Brazil, on those sugar plantations, life expectancy for an enslaved person could be as low as 3 years.
3 years? It's unbelievable.
It's almost impossible to comprehend. But the brutal calculation was that it was cheaper to work people to death and just buy more captives from Africa than to provide basic care. They worked in these gangs 10, 11 hours a day, 6 days a week, often in incredibly dangerous conditions around fires and machinery for processing the cane.
Was there much resistance?
Resistance was constant, but usually small scale, localized, breaking tools, working slowly, that kind of thing. Large-scale revolts were extremely difficult because of language barriers among newly arrived people from different parts of Africa, the constant surveillance, and the overwhelming power of the owners. The profit from sugar was just so immense it overshadowed any shred of humanity.
And within this incredibly oppressive system, this unique language, Gula, emerged.
Yeah.
What was that about?
Right, the Gula is fascinating. It was essentially a simplified, work-oriented language, a kind of pidgin or Creole, mixing Portuguese and various African languages.
Speak Portuguese.
Portugal was heavily involved in the early slave trade. So this language was designed, or rather enforced, to be just functional enough for giving orders and managing the sugar production process.
So the owners wanted them to use it.
Yes, they mandated it. The explicit goal was to prevent enslaved people from communicating in their native languages, which could, facilitate planning resistance or rebellion, keep communication limited to work tasks.
Wow, so it was a tool of control.
Absolutely. But, like many things created under oppression, it also became something more. It became a shared language, a basis for a new culture, forged in horrific circumstances. It's a testament, in a way, to human resilience, finding ways to connect and preserve identity even when deliberately suppressed.
We've definitely covered a huge amount of ground today, from the ingenuity of the Pueblo, Chinook, Chumash, and Iroquois adapting to their lands, the central role of the buffalo.
To those key dates, 1492, 1534, 1614, the crucial resistance in 1680.
The flow of the Columbian Exchange, the stark differences between Franciscan and Jesuit approaches, the complicated legacy of Las Casas.
And understanding the brutal realities of New World slavery and the emergence of Gullah. It's a lot to take in, but hopefully it's clearer now for your test prep.
Absolutely. You should have a really solid foundation now.
And remember, history isn't just memorizing these facts and dates. It's about seeing the connections, understanding why things happen, the motivations, the consequences.
Yeah, seeing how these early interactions, both cooperative and incredibly violent, shaped everything that came after.
Exactly. These stories are deeply intertwined, and they echo right down to the present day.
So, as you prepare for your test, try to think beyond just getting the answers right. Consider how these events laid the groundwork for centuries of conflict, cultural mixing, and the ongoing struggles for justice. Maybe ask yourself, what stands out to you as the most surprising or maybe the most impactful long-term consequence of everything we've talked about today?
That's a great question to ponder. Good luck with the test. We really hope this deep dive has given you not just the info, but the confidence to go in there and really nail it.
You've got this. And until next time, keep digging deeper.